Battle of Crécy, fought on the 26th of August 1346, stands as one of the most decisive engagements of the 100 Years' War. On one side, the English and Welsh forces, bolstered by allied troops, were commanded by King Edward III. Opposing them was the significantly larger French army under the leadership of King Philip VI. The battlefield would soon witness a clash of tactics, technology, and bravery that would shape medieval warfare. Edward III had carefully prepared his forces for the confrontation. His army, numbering approximately 4,000 knights and men-at-arms, 7,000 Welsh and English archers, and 5,000 spearmen, was a well-organized and disciplined fighting machine. In a departure from traditional medieval tactics, Edward ordered his heavily armored men-at-arms to fight on foot, ensuring a steadfast defensive line. To further secure their position, the English soldiers dug ditches and scattered caltrops, metal spikes designed to cripple advancing cavalry across the battlefield. The French army, estimated at a staggering 20,000 to 30,000 troops, was vast but less coordinated. Its ranks included a contingent of mercenary Genoese crossbowmen at the vanguard, supported by divisions of knights and men-at-arms led by the Count of Alençon. King Philip VI was also joined by John of Bohemia, the blind but courageous king, whose presence would later become a poignant part of the battle story. The French army, estimated at a staggering 20,000 to 30,000 troops, was vast but less coordinated. Its ranks included a contingent of mercenary Genoese crossbowmen at the vanguard, supported by divisions of knights and men-at-arms led by the Count of Alençon. King Philip VI was also joined by John of Bohemia, the blind but courageous king, whose presence would later become a poignant part of the battle story. As the armies positioned themselves, the English chose their ground wisely. Their flanks were naturally defended, one side bordered by dense forests and marshy terrain, the other anchored by the small village of Waudecourt. This strategic positioning would play a critical role in the battle's outcome. The French forces made a critical error even before the fighting began. The Genoese crossbowmen, who formed the first line of attack, had left their protective pavises, large shields used to block incoming arrows, behind in the baggage train. To make matters worse, a sudden rainstorm swept across the battlefield as they advanced. The water damaged their crossbows, rendering them far less effective. Meanwhile, the English longbowmen, whose weapons were unaffected by the rain, waited patiently. As the French army raised their sacred battle standard, the oriflamme, the stakes were made clear. No quarter would be given, and no prisoners would be taken. But when the Genoese mercenaries faltered under the unrelenting hail of English arrows, the French knights mistook their retreat for cowardice. Enraged, they slaughtered the fleeing crossbowmen, further sowing chaos within their ranks. Wave after wave of French cavalry charged at the English lines, 15 assaults in total. Each attack was repelled with devastating losses, as the ground in front of the English position became a nightmarish mass of fallen men and horses. Despite the mounting casualties, the French continued their relentless assaults. One of the most famous moments of the battle involved Edward III's son, the Black Prince. His division bore the brunt of the French attacks, and at a critical juncture, a messenger was dispatched to the king, requesting reinforcements for the prince. Edward, standing by a windmill that served as his vantage point, famously refused, declaring, "Let the boy win his spurs." This statement symbolized his confidence in his son and in the discipline of his troops. Among the French forces, John of Bohemia displayed remarkable, if tragic, bravery. Blind but undeterred, he tied his horse's bridle to those of his attendants and charged into the fray. His audacious attack ended in his death, along with those who accompanied him. After the battle, his body was discovered by the Black Prince, who took it as a symbol of respect for his courage. King Philip VI himself was wounded during the battle, and his horse was killed beneath him, twice. Eventually, with his army in tatters, Philip was forced to abandon the battlefield, narrowly escaping capture. The French losses were catastrophic. Over 1,500 French knights were killed, and countless others fled. In stark contrast, English casualties were remarkably low, numbering only around 300. As the sun set over Crécy, the English army stood victorious. Among the spoils of war was the captured oriflamme, a potent symbol of their triumph. The Battle of Crécy not only demonstrated the effectiveness of disciplined infantry and the deadly power of the English longbow, but also marked a turning point in medieval warfare, where strategy and preparation could overcome sheer numbers. This battle remains a testament to Edward III's leadership, the resilience of his troops, and the evolving nature of combat in the medieval world. The echoes of Crécy would resonate throughout history, shaping the course of the 100 Years' War and cementing its place as one of the great military engagements of its time.